to all those who have dedicated their life to this wonderful profession. As our UNESCO Director General, Ms. Audrey Azoulay, stated today, jointly with UNICEF's Executive Director, Ms. Henrietta Fore, with ILO's Director General, Mr. Guy Ryder, and with Education International's General Secretary, Mr. David Edwards. I quote them, this was a joint statement. Today we celebrate the exceptional dedication and courage of all teachers, their capacity to adapt and to innovate under very challenging and uncertain conditions. They are the principal actors of the global education recovery efforts and are key in accelerating progress towards inclusive and equitable quality education for every learner in every circumstance. So, as we start our program and begin slowly to introduce our report, we thought you would like to hear from just a few of the millions of Indian teachers and what they think makes a good teacher. Here's what they had to say.
अध्यापक को धैर्यवान, मृदुभाषी, मित्रवत होना बहुत ज़रूरी है। बच्चों के साथ तालमेल बैठाना और भी आवश्यक है।
बच्चों भावनाओं तक समझो, बच्चों से हमारा लगाव होना चाहिए कि उनका दिल में क्या बात है, उनको प्रश्न क्या है, वो समझना हम तो बहुत ज़रूरी है।
शिक्षकस्य द्वितीय नामः आचार्य अपि भवति। आचार्यस्य योग्यता अस्ति यः आचारं ग्राहयति अचिनोति अर्थान् अचिनोति बुद्धिम् इति वा।
Patient listener, a lifelong learner, and a motivating friend or a collaborator.
वेरियस टीचिंग मेथड्स को और स्ट्रैटेजीज को अपने स्टूडेंट तक पहुंचाएं और अपने ज्ञान कौशल के द्वारा उन्हें उत्तरोत्तर प्रगति के मार्ग पर अग्रसर कर सकें।
एक बढ़िया गुरुजी हुए सका ना जो अपा बच्चों कभी भी हिम्मत न हारण दो।
ഇന്നത്തെ അധ്യാപിക 21ാം നൂറ്റാണ്ടിലെ എല്ലാ അറിവുകളുമുള്ള ഒരു അധ്യാപികയായിരിക്കണം.
This year, of course, our report was very much influenced by the COVID-19 pandemic and how it affected schools everywhere. But it is important here to recall it is not really schools that have been closed, but only school buildings. All over India, the teachers and the staff remained fully mobilized so that Sustainable Development Goal 4 could be fulfilled. As you all know very well, SDG 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And here I'm going to turn to Deidre Boyd, the UN Resident Coordinator in India, to give us some overall perspective. Deidre, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. Could you please tell us why SDG 4 is so important within the whole set of the SDGs?
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on World Teachers' Day and for the launch of the UNESCO's State of Education in India report. Why? We have 17 Sustainable Development Goals. They're all important. But SDG 4, which is about education, inclusive and equitable education for all and lifelong learning, is like a raft that keeps all of the SDGs afloat. We've seen this particularly, I think, during the COVID pandemic. We've seen what a difference it makes when children are challenged in their learning, when they can't go to school, when teachers are trying to work online using new methodologies. Education is so important. It's the one thing that will break poverty cycles, that will get children out of the trap of poverty, break that multi-generational vicious circle of poverty. Schools in themselves also provide places of safety, places of well-being for children, and also places of nutrition for children, particularly the poorest children. So education is key in equipping the workers of the future and building the society we want. It's also important for gender equality. How else will girls have the same choices in life that boys have unless they have an equal education? It's important for democracy. India is the largest democracy in the world. You need educated citizens. You need literate citizens who can distinguish between fact and fiction and who can articulate their aspirations, their needs, particularly the most marginalized and the poorest. And at the heart of this very transformational agenda of education is teachers. Without teachers, and their dedication, particularly during the COVID pandemic, children would have lost far more than they've already lost. It's been a challenge across the world for teachers to transform, to be at home, to use digital learning, while perhaps also looking after their own childcare. So I think it's very appropriate that this year's report focuses on teachers. We need to do a lot more to support teachers, to restore them to that privileged position that teachers used to have in our society as being the most respected people in the community, the people who played role models. I see there's many recommendations in the UNESCO report which really see how we can do better in supporting teachers. So I think, again, I think we've always all benefited from education ourselves, obviously, but I think the COVID pandemic has taught us not to take it so much for granted, to actually understand what schools bring to children. It's not just passing a test or passing exams, it's really ensuring their well-being, equipping them for future society, and I think the future of India and the future of the world and the achievement of all the SDGs will depend on having a young, educated, healthy, in the sense of physical health, but also mental health, young generation that will take it forward. So congratulations again to UNESCO on your report, and I look forward to hearing the discussion on the recommendations. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deirdre. With our report, we wanted to take a comprehensive and constructive look at the implementation of existing policies to address teachers, teaching, and teacher education issues in the country, highlighting best practices and proposing a set of actionable recommendations. So the report is trying to do all of that, and I really want to acknowledge here the leadership of Nicole Bella, who's sitting there, the head of our education team at UNESCO New Delhi, and Abhinav Kumar, Associate Program Coordinator, for all the technical inputs and coordination on behalf of our office. You will see them later in our program. For this report, we paired up with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, TIS, based in Mumbai, and recognized for their expertise and the excellence of their research work on all of these issues. They worked tirelessly on this report for 9 months. Thanks to them, the report draws extensively on existing and new research on the subject at both national and global levels, and consultations with key stakeholders, including, of course, national institutions, civil society organizations, parents, and teacher organizations. But let me give the floor immediately to Dr. Padma Sarangapani from the Center of Excellence in Teacher Education at TIS, the lead author of this year's State of the Education Report for India, to explain on behalf of the whole team the complexity of preparing this report. And she's accompanied today by Ruchi Kumar, whom I want to acknowledge as well. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Eric. This is the third report that is collaborated with UNESCO to produce, and we thought we knew what it would take, but we still had to learn a lot in the process, especially because of the pandemic context. We found ourselves constrained. We couldn't meet together physically to work, but we made the best use of what technology offers us to get together as a team. We started off just by brainstorming on what we thought this report should cover. we thought it's really important for us to do because ours is a new center for excellence in teacher education, and we wanted this to be the first major research output from our center. We know that India is very diverse, so this report really should reflect the complex diversity, both developmentally as well as from the point of view of education. We also know that education is, school education especially, there's a growing private sector presence in school education, and we need to cover the issues that teachers in that sector face as well. And we also know the history of the profession, and we thought the report should reflect on the complexities of this profession and its growth. Our brainstorming was validated with the editorial board. I want to acknowledge the enthusiastic inputs received from all members of the editorial board, some of whom are here today, Pranati, Dr. Srivastav, because that really validated the approach we were taking, and they were very generous with their time and giving us access to data as we proceeded. So we've used a combination of existing literature. We've really combed literature on teachers in India and drawn on that for this report. We've used existing databases. We used the UDICE, saw it through the lens of the teacher, and tried to make sense of teachers' conditions in schools. We used data from the periodic labor force to understand the teaching profession. And we did a little bit of primary research ourselves. We interviewed 63 teacher educators, and we also worked with the CBSE CTET papers. And these are the things that we offer you through this report. But I should especially say that we learned as a group of researchers how to communicate research findings and make them relevant to multiple stakeholders. And for that, I'm really grateful, Eric, both for the opportunity as well as the able guidance of yourself, Nicole, and especially Abhinav. We've really enjoyed this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Padma, for all the hard work that you and your team put into this report. So let us jump into the report now, beginning with basic but important data to put it into context. First of all, I mean, some of you know these figures, maybe others don't, but according to the most recent data, 9.7 million teachers were employed across 1.5 million primary and secondary schools in India during the 2019-2020 school year. This makes India one of the countries with the largest teaching workforces in the world, perhaps even the largest. What this data also shows us is that the profession is overall gender balanced, with women accounting for about 50% of the teaching workforce. However, there are significant interstate and urban-rural variations. 67% of teachers in urban areas are women, as compared to 43% of rural teachers. As you can see on the screen, there's an important gender imbalance between also different types of teachers. And we know that early childhood education, special education, and private unaided schools are highly feminized. In contrast, there are much less women teachers in vocational education, with less than a third of them represented, approximately 32%. This has shown that there's a real need to support women teachers in these sectors and ensure that they are given equal opportunities. I mentioned that at the beginning because it's important to recall that gender equality is a global priority for UNESCO. And throughout this report, we have looked at the teaching sector of India from a gender lens. I just gave you one example. You will see many more in the report. And indeed, the report it does indicate that while teaching is a first choice for women as well as for youth, they often make this choice to better balance their work and their family responsibilities. So we see in the report that for this reason they're also less willing to opt for other responsibilities, like for instance school management. This does raise obviously some gender equality issues in the educational workforce, as you will read in the report. At this stage, I think it's also very important, coming from the perspective of UNESCO, to acknowledge and emphasize that in India the government has taken very important steps to make reforms in education a priority. All in all, the National Education Policy 2020 was truly a landmark document. This is something that we say often, but I certainly want to say it again today. It outlines a very ambitious and progressive vision of the education system. When it comes to teachers, the National Education Policy proposes a number of changes to ensure the availability of quality teachers and quality teaching. It acknowledges teachers as the heart of the learning process and stresses the importance of their recruitment, continuous professional development, work environment and service conditions, a number of issues that we are touching upon in the report as well. I also want to mention, as alluded to by Professor Padma, that for our reports we conduct extensive peer review, and we are also supported by a high-level editorial board. This includes colleagues from the teaching division at UNESCO Paris headquarters, as well as UNICEF India, and I'm very happy that my colleague and friend Yasmin Alihaq, the director of UNICEF, was able to join us today also. We also work with distinguished experts in education from, for instance, the Office of the Vice President of India, the National Council of Educational Research and Training, the National Council of Teacher Education, the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, the National Coalition for Education, and Education International, to name the main ones. So, without further ado, I really want to call upon at this stage Ms. Kesang Sherpa, Member Secretary, National Council for Teacher Education, to discuss one of the recommendations. We'll start with recommendation 1 in our report, which is improve the terms of employment of teachers in both public and private schools. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. The Indian education system is one of the largest education systems in the world, and this system strives to continuously maintain standards and uniformity across the country while giving scope to the country's diverse culture and the various diversities that are there. This National Education Policy 2020 exhorts that teachers truly shape the future of our children, and therefore they shape the future of our nation, which thereby implies that teachers are the most important persons who form the foundations for nation building, because they create high quality of human resource in their classrooms. NEP 2020 has suggested systemic reforms that would help teaching emerge as the profession of choice for bright and talented young minds and empower teachers, and also to restore the high respect and status that belong to this profession. The NEP 2020 proposes a complete overhaul in the teaching profession by creating a robust merit-based structure of tenure, salary, and promotion that incentivizes and recognizes outstanding teachers. It endorses humane service and conditions and uplifting the morale of the school teacher. It talks of creating performance standards for a teacher and chalks out the role of a teacher at different stages of expertise or competence and lays out the competencies for the same. To raise the status of a teacher, NEP, as already Eric has pointed out, has come out with a number of reforms. We at the National Council of Teacher Education are steering the National Professional Standard for Teachers, which aims to determine all aspects of teacher career management, including tenure, continuous professional development efforts, salary increases, promotions, and other recognitions. At NCTE, we are also designing the 4-year integrated dual major undergraduate course for aspiring teachers. The intention behind this course is that young and bright minds choose teaching as a profession by consciously and not as a fallback when unemployment is there or their employment opportunities are absent. This four-year ITEP program is also likely to address the multiple cadres and the hierarchies which exist between different levels of teachers. We are aware that teachers are working under diverse contexts and conditions. However, there are substantial improvements in the salary structure, in the construction of proper schools with basic amenities, continuous upgradation program for teachers, access to digital infrastructure, etc. The effort towards building such a climate with direct involvement of school teachers, administrators, and professionals directly related to school education are already underway through various schemes and initiatives of the Ministry of Education, Government of India. We acknowledge the contribution of teachers, the way they have made recognition. They have given recognition to education not only within our country and also outside. We take pride in the fact that our country provides quality education at a cost lower than many developed countries, and that many students from abroad come to India to avail of the educational facilities here. We appreciate the dedication, the professional competence, and the services rendered by the teaching community in building the future of India, and it is the endeavor of the Government of India to restore the status of teachers as the noblest of all professions. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kesang, for your valuable insight. I think it's fair to say that all over the world this is an issue, and that in many countries the work of teachers needs to be better recognized and valued. I would now invite Ms. Nopur, Executive Director of the National Coalition for Education, who is joining us virtually, to please expand on recommendation 2, which is increase the number of teachers and improve working conditions in northeastern states, rural areas, and aspirational districts. Please go ahead. I don't know if she can hear us.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and very happy Teachers' Day. Thanks to UNESCO for having me here.
Can you please go ahead and elaborate on recommendation 2, please?
Oh, all right. Cool. So I'll go ahead. So first of all, let me congratulate UNESCO and Professor Padma and the team for coming up with such a relevant report, which is definitely going to be very useful, specifically for people like us who advocate for rights of teachers. So hearty congratulations on that. I've been asked to talk on recommendation 2, which, as Eric mentioned, is to increase the number of teachers and also improve the working conditions of teachers. So I would like to make 3-4 points to support the recommendations. To start with, yes, there has been a constant discussion and there has been a constant continuing concern around the gap of the teachers on their availability and their requirement. While the national average shows that the condition is satisfactory, but if one goes at the local level, one finds the imbalances. The imbalances in terms of rural-urban divide, in terms of differences between states, districts, and schools. So yes, the imbalances exist, and that needs to be taken into consideration. Government should take steps and specific interventions to even out those imbalances. Even in terms of single teacher schools, in states like Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, there is a huge number of schools which are single teacher, and their challenges are manifold, right? So government need to take interventions to even out these imbalances if it really wants to bring in quality education for every child in this country. Second point that I would want to make is about the inclusivity. And I think some part of it, obviously, Eric has already mentioned while introducing. But let me just add to it that I also think there are 2 points. One, that we know that children coming to schools, a lot of them come from marginalized background, and they are the first generation learners. And therefore they seek attention, they need attention in the classroom, and which is possible only when the PTR is lowered. Therefore, there is a great need for lowering this PTR by recruiting more teachers. Second, if I look at from the gender perspective, I think another important point is also that unless there are teachers, yes, at national average there is a parity of male and female teachers, but what is also important is to look at how many schools still exist without a female teacher. And if there is not a female teacher in every school, the schools who do not have a female teacher are definitely not gender inclusive. So I think that is another point that I think should be taken as a matter of concern and an urgent matter of concern. The third and probably the last point that I would like to make is, which also very rightly the recommendation strongly recommends, is about improving the conditions, working conditions of teachers. We are very much aware about the difficult working condition of teachers throughout the country, at least most part of the countries. But it is also important to note that there are few particular geographical areas which needs more attention. There are northeastern states which are difficult to reach, the rural areas which lack basic amenities. And of course, the study also brings out the need to intervene in some of the aspirational districts. So yes, it's very important to also improve the working condition of teachers if you want them to perform well and if you want to give quality education to all our children. So with that, I think I've already taken my time. Thanks for having me here. And from National Coalition, I would like to endorse the recommendations that has come through the study. And I hope government also takes it forward. Thank you for having me here once again. Looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nopur. As to remind you, she's the Executive Director of the National Coalition for Education. Now, we're going to change things a little bit. We have to use different formats to keep you interested in our report. So now you're going to have our very own UNESCO New Delhi Head of Education, Nicole Bella, share with us in a short video the importance of recommendation 3, which is to recognize teachers as frontline workers.
An Indian teacher is really a jack of all trades. This means her or his jobs involve much more than the actual teaching. They are in charge for leading classes, conducting examinations, evaluating exam papers, but they are also asked to carry out non-academic activities like distributing midday meal rations, school textbooks, and stationery items. Teachers are also often called to carry out several volunteering functions like community awareness, and they assume responsibilities during elections. Their responsibilities have been further increased during the COVID-19 health crisis, which has put them at higher risk of exposure. For instance, they have been assisting in conducting door-to-door surveys and have also been involved in supporting the vaccination drives. As a result, many teachers have experienced mental and emotional stress with concern for personal and family well-being to be balanced with work responsibilities. Therefore, given the current situation, the physical and mental health of teachers should be given utmost importance. The State of Education Report for India 2021 calls for the immediate need to recognize teachers as frontline workers.
Thank you, Nicole. For recommendation number 4, we have developed another short capsule that has been shot by our enthusiastic team at Snow Leopard. I don't know if they're here today, but we want to thank them as well. And this particular video brings attention to the need to increase the number of teachers, specifically in physical education, music, art, vocational education, early childhood, and special education.
By engaging in activities like painting, dancing, practicing yoga, playing a sport, learning music, students have the opportunity to look beyond textbooks and identify their unique interests and passions. In order to enhance creativity, critical and analytical thinking among students, the effective deployment of teachers specialized in these subjects is very much needed. Research from across the globe has highlighted, for instance, that art exercises can help in improving students' handwriting and offer emotional growth. Music, yoga, or other physical activity also have the ability to create a positive mind and can improve the concentration of a child. Exceptional groups of learners, like children with special needs, require focused attention outside of a regular learning setup. There is a need for more teachers in early childhood education and special education to prepare children for formal learning. Moreover, extracurricular activities like carpentry, embroidery can act as potential areas to spur vocations. State support is key to develop effective teacher education programs in these curriculum areas. The other important stakeholders, like social workers and counselors, also play a pivotal role in developing localized responses and building greater resilience in the education system.
I want to mention here that all the photographs and videos that you have seen and will see today have been conceived, of course, specifically for this report, and so that they can be used pretty much by anybody in any context. They're absolutely free of rights. And we've taken great care in their selection, as I'm sure you can see. We just ask that you give brief credit to UNESCO New Delhi if you use them. For the media who are following us, I know that beyond Zoom, as I said, we are on 2 Facebook channels and on YouTube. Please be aware that we have additional B-roll and a longer 5-minute video, which is summarizing the entire report, which we're not going to show here. Feel free to approach our public information team to access all this material. Reka and Annapurna are here in the room if you need, and thank you also for all the work that you've put into this report. Moving on, now we have a video message all the way from the UNESCO headquarters in Paris from Carlos Vargas, who is chief of the teaching division at UNESCO headquarters in Paris. He will share his insights on recommendation 5, which is value the professional autonomy of teachers.
Your Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to see that the State of Education Report of India is launched precisely on World Teachers' Day, a day in which we commemorate the recommendations concerning the status of teachers and higher education teaching personnel. It has been 55 years since the adoption of the joint ILO-UNESCO recommendation, when it was issued to set the rights and responsibilities of teachers and to set international standards for their initial education, recruitment, professional development, career opportunities, working conditions, and overall social standing. However, and even though a plethora of studies report that teacher quality has a direct impact on student performance and well-being, and that quality teaching, beyond the socioeconomic conditions of students and the context of the educational process, is the single most important in-school factor influencing student achievement, teachers remain under-recognized and underappreciated. A consequence of this lack of recognition is the fact that they are seldom consulted or get to participate in decision-making and policy formulation processes. and that the teaching profession is not one of the most appealing careers for the best students going into tertiary education. In addition to employment conditions, the disenchantment with teaching is caused by recent narratives that tend to blame the teacher for the failure of learners and of education itself. This can be explained by a recent trend of shifting responsibility from the state onto the individual, to learners, to teachers, and sometimes even families, which has been accentuated by a recent claim of a learning crisis and by poor results in standard and large-scale testing. Even though there is a legitimate concern with the quality of teaching, this alone cannot be construed as the sole reason for underperformance. There is a need to examine structural factors like the funding of education, the quality of educational infrastructure, and the learning environments, the curriculum, the educational materials, and these among many other factors that depend on educational authorities and other actors apart from teachers. The appearance of new forms of accountability follows the instauration of the principles of efficiency and productivity in order for the education system to deliver better results in a cost-effective way. These new forms of accountability, however, threaten to narrow the curriculum and to water down the role of teachers, undermining their authoritative voice in educational processes. The rise of large-scale testing, teacher evaluation, school inspection, prescribed curriculum, teaching standards are a few examples of the implications that these technologies have had on the teaching profession and how they constrain the art of teaching. Whereas these instruments could be utilized for further reflection, for peer learning, and for participation, they are sometimes and often used for control. As a result, the work of teachers has been subjected to new forms of control and regulation that threaten not only to prescribe what teachers do, but what they actually should be, affecting teaching practice on the one hand, but also the very identity, values, and vocation of teachers. These forms of accountability undermine the very work that teachers are called to do and contradict claims that teachers in the 21st century should be creative, adaptive, and promote new ways of thinking. This is just impossible when teacher autonomy is compromised. With a weakened autonomy and diluted opportunities to exercise pedagogical judgment, knowledge, and responsibility, teacher professionalism has been profoundly affected. It is very timely that the State of Education Report of India focuses on teachers, given their role at the heart of education recovery, and in particular that the fifth recommendation coming out of the report focuses precisely on valuing the professional autonomy of teachers. This recommendation, which highlights that the autonomy of teachers must be enhanced and respected, that it should be nurtured, and that a strict curricula and micromanagement of work should be done without. Therefore, I congratulate UNESCO's office in New Delhi for this grand achievement and look forward to seeing these recommendations guide the work of teachers in the country. I wish you all a very rich and interesting day ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this was Carlos Vargas in Paris. As I've said, our report throughout tries to be constructive, and it does showcase a number of best practices in the country. Here I want to mention, for instance, the push that the national education policy has created over the past year. One such example is the National Initiative for School Heads and Teachers Holistic Advancement, NISHTA. For those who are not aware, NISHTA offers teachers with training modules, digital literacy, preschool education, assessment, and as well and health and well-being. If you need more information on NISHTA and many other such best practices, please read our report when we make it available in full. And you will see that in many ways, all our case studies highlight that while the COVID-19 pandemic has been a hindrance to the education systems across the globe, this is also a real opportunity to reflect and bring about changes that will protect teachers and provide appropriate support to them. I will now give the floor to Professor Praniti Panda, Professor and Head of the Department of School and Non-Formal Education at the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration. Professor Praniti, I would ask that you please build upon, in particular, our recommendation number 6, which is build teacher career pathways. Over to you.
Thank you, Eric. It's indeed my great pleasure to share some of
the very
significant recommendation of this report. I just want to remind our very, very oldest and strong document, Indian Education Report, just after post-independence period, linking to the title, No Teacher, No Class. The very significant recommendation made that during that time is that destiny of India is being set in our classroom, and emphasized the very critical role of the teachers, shaping the democracy, shaping the education sector, so on and so forth. I was just connecting the thread amongst all the recommendation. I think the most important recommendation is the building career pathways for all Indian teachers, but we should also understand that the current scenario of Indian teachers is a bit diversified. 9.7 million teachers, but quite good number of them are equally contractual, not having that kind of career opportunities or progression in their pathways. We need to show this concern on this World Teachers' Day. Friends, just to share with you, if we want to professionalize teaching profession, we should not forget building a very strong career pathways for all teachers who are serving the 15 lakh school in our country. And univocally, India is placing stress through different strategic document, policy pronouncement about the career pathways of the teacher. And we do have many education acts and code sharing that they can really progress in their career path. And within this diversified school sector management, you could see that the central government management school like Kendriya Vidyalaya, Jawaharlal Navodaya Vidyalaya, teachers are getting huge opportunity to progress in their career path, but we need to focus on our government school who are working in the very, very diversified, difficult situation, which they have proved. I strongly agree with Nicole sharing that possibly our teachers are just like Goddess Durga. They have got all the power to manage crisis as well as handle the situation. Second part, I just want to inform you that the career option available, whether in the vertical or horizontal manner, or continuing as a teacher, retiring as a teacher, or entering to any administrative option, as per our data, it's only varies from 10 to 25%. Like, it hugely depends on the very governance, structural model, how we are managing the teaching community, professionalizing it, and linking it with the very outcome-based culture. So this kind of career pathways, it's not acquiring a degree, moving to another grade of teaching profession, for example, from elementary to secondary to higher secondary, but giving them enough opportunity to enter to the administrative cadre like block education officer, district education officer. Possibly when we reflect back our historicity, good number of teachers used to enter to the teacher education program, and also they served the teacher education courses. Possibly that career pathways gradually, incrementally declined over a period of time. We need to revive it. How do we revive it? Create a cadre, and also the reviving the recruitment policy, promotional policies. Recommendations are very strong in our country's context, but we need to bring them by action, keeping in view the very, very diversified promotional opportunity privilege across the states. For example, I just want to share, because we are continuously touch with different states, Tamil Nadu has a strong promotional avenues. All teachers, they can move, or quite good number of teachers can move to the administrative cadre, or they can occupy the head of the position. So this significant recommendation we should share amongst everybody to make our teaching profession a strong through a good cadre management or professionalizing teaching profession. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a very special teacher among us today. Please join me in welcoming the 2020 Global Teacher Prize winner, Mr. Ranjit Singh Desale, who was awarded the prize recently by the Varkey Foundation with the support of UNESCO. Ranjit was recognized for transforming the life chances of young girls at the Zila Parishad Primary School in Solapur, Maharashtra. And we've invited him to join us today. Please give him a mic. Ranjit, please join me here and expand on recommendation number 7, restructure pre-service professional development and strengthen curricular and pedagogical reform. The floor is yours. And thank you for joining us, really.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Eric, and all the participants and delegate members who actually wrote this report. So I've been asked to talk about the very significant recommendation. It's all about pre-service professional development. And I still remember when I joined Teachers Training College, and my teachers told me that students of 21st century are being taught by teachers of 20th century, using that 19th century curriculum on an 18th century techniques. And I still remember the statement made by my teacher, and it still inspires me to become a teacher of 21st century. We need, not only the India, but the entire world needs teachers of 21st century. But how we can get those teachers of 21st century? I think the answer itself in the recommendation number 7, that we should now invest in pre-service professional development of teachers. But it's not just about a recommendation. It's not just about stating or submitting the proposal. It's all about the change, whether the change is going to happen, not only in terms of curriculum. I more like to see the change in the content. How teachers could be developed more professionally. Because right now I see that NCRT, when they have come up with the new teachers training colleges and they come up with the new curriculum, I am the student of that new curriculum. So I think that I'm a teacher, I'm teaching to multi-grade classroom, 3rd and 4th classrooms I'm teaching in the same class, in the same room. But I'm not being trained to do these type of the things. So what Nicole has marked, that teachers are doing enormous type of work in the classrooms in India. So we need to develop them. We need teachers for separate teachers for tribal communities. We need teachers for Divyang bachcho ke liye. We need some teachers who speak rural dialects. So it's not like a single curriculum for all the teachers. Can we have a curriculum well designed for the needs, considering the needs of students and their backgrounds? So our curriculum should be more diverse. So that if I want to choose, I want to teach in the rural areas only, or I want to teach in the metro cities only. So my teaching curriculum should be something different. That's what I like to see. I also did the same survey 3 years ago and tried to find out what teachers think of their profession. And this report was called as Maharashtra State Teachers Status Index. And I asked a simple question to my teachers. Would you like your kids to become a teacher? And unfortunately, many of them, they don't want their kids to become a teacher. I think the answer itself states the situation and the status of teachers in the society. We should respect, we should start respecting the teachers. Even I'm becoming a global teacher, it's not just about recognizing my work. It's all about recognizing teachers. We should give them the respect that they deserve. And I think just giving that recommendation of just what exactly the pre-service professional development should look like. I think it should be the diverse curriculum. The content should be very diverse so that teachers or the aspirants or the students, those who would like to become a teachers, they may choose where they would like to work, with what type of students they would like to teach to them. So this is what my submissions on the floor today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you can really applaud Ranjit. I mean, he's being very modest, but he won this prize among thousands of teachers worldwide. The prize ceremony is usually in London, and I know you could not go this year, but you were with your family receiving virtually the prize. It's a big prize. It carries $1 million, I believe, and in his generosity, he immediately announced that he would share the prize with the 9 other finalists. And I know it will make, in any case, a big difference to your community. So we wish you good luck for the future, and thank you again for joining us. So we're inching towards the unveiling of the report, and I hope that you are soaking in all of the different aspects of the report. Of course, we have a lot of initiatives that are underlined in the report, and many of the initiatives in India in the field of education would not be possible without the leadership of our next speaker, and we are grateful that he could join us today. Many of you know him, of course. His name is Dr. Sridhar Srivastava. He's the director of the National Council of Educational Research and Training, NCERT. He will now discuss the importance of Recommendation 8, which is support communities of practice. Please, you have the floor.
Yeah. So, a very good afternoon. Thank you, Eric, for your kind words for the institution NCERT. In fact, the recommendation which we have arrived at, recommendation number 8, we have listened to the earlier recommendation, and today on the release of this report, State of the Education Report, India Teachers Status, and we are going to talk about, or we are talking about this entity, teacher, which are about 9 to 10 million in this country, and as Padma was mentioning, that we have a diverse situation and all. As institution also, we have made many initiatives, and we have undertaken many initiatives with the support of institutions like you all, civil societies, state government and all. What we are experiencing is that if we are in a state capital and then we move to block or sub-district area, we find that the setup is there, the infrastructure is there, different kind of problem may be there, that the number of teachers, as just Ranjit Singh Disale was mentioning, that multi-grade teaching is a situation that we should realize. We should not be just roam around in some gloomy picture that all these things are there and this. But we feel that supporting community of practice is a medium, you can say. Because what is there? We have technology with us, we have the gadget in the hand of teacher, and it only requires a mental setup or appreciation for peer support or helping to the real cause or to the needy group of person. These are certain kind of things, mindset that we need to bring forth. So one initiative what Eric was mentioning about NISTA, there also we found that yes, the setup is there, teacher can, best practices video can be uploaded, and all these things are there. But we are finding that this is a one-way communication. There is no any system of peer evaluation or peer validation. So these are certain things that we find that it would help a lot. Because as you know, that it is now proven, we have seen the last year and now also we are undergoing the same situation. We can believe that our teachers folk are able to learn within themselves and they can manage any situation. When we saw the onset of pandemic, And I tell you that it was a great challenge before us. We as NCERT also, we started certain video programs and just discussion for online, how to perform teaching learning process online on all these things. Then we saw that the teachers are coming up very quickly. So we can believe that teachers can learn among themselves, and they can support each other, and we should come forward by way of supporting the community of practices. One more point I want to make, that as Mr. Desale was just mentioning about restructuring pre-service teacher preparation program, I feel he is mentioning it very rightly, because this kind of peer learning or concept, and more than concept, the practice is very much important during pre-service course program. At institution level also we find sometime that right hand is not ready to share to the left hand what is there. We find sometimes, so I see it a very, the point that he was mentioning, restructuring pre-service teacher preparation should include that peers learning, peer evaluation, this kind of things. That's very important, because the kind of initiative we are undertaking as regard to learning, and then more importantly in the recent time what we have come up as a country, and the national education policy also mentioned about the learning beyond the cognitive domain, affective or psychomotor or 21st century skills. These kind of things are very important to spread across the board among the teachers, and different aspects associated with that. For example, assessment is very important aspect that is associated with this kind of learning. So day in, day out, if assessment will not be there, then how we will be able to gauge that whether there is progress as regard to this kind of learning. So keeping these things in mind, I feel that supporting community of practices is very important recommendation that we have made in this report, and we can further deliberate on these things and come out with certain exemplar models or exemplar successful stories from across the country, and that would be a good step ahead in that area. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sridhar, for the continuous support and guidance that you have provided to us in the development of this report. On behalf of UNESCO New Delhi, I really want to say that we cherish the link with NCERT, and that we pledge our continued full support and cooperation with you in the coming years. As you will find from the summary of our report that will be distributed now very soon, most teachers are found to have positive attitudes and beliefs about integrating technology in education. Countering a common myth, the report highlights that teachers do not think that use of technology will have negative effect on students. On the contrary, a survey conveyed in the early days of COVID-19 found that most teachers are very open to ICT enabling teaching. However, teachers are concerned about the lack of their own proficiency, the lack of suitable resources, and poor infrastructure. It was felt that by 57% of teachers that using technology was often too time-consuming. 65% felt that their own limited ability to integrate ICT into their subject teaching posed challenges. So, to illustrate this aspect, we have another video. It features Abhinav Kumar, who, as I said earlier, is Associate Program Coordinator in the Education team at UNESCO New Delhi, and as I'm sure you have seen, has been very instrumental in supporting Nicole for the production of this report and working closely with our friends at TIS as well. Abhinav is going to discuss why we have come up with recommendation 9, provide teachers with meaningful ICT training.
The use of information and communication technology in the education sector has become a lot more widespread in the past decade. With the advancements in technology, the teaching formats in schools have changed and they have allowed teachers to make teaching and learning more fun. A teacher's ability to adapt and integrate technology can help boost learning among learners. Familiarity with online teaching methods is crucial since knowledge and understanding of such methods can help to reach the remotest locations of the country. The high internet penetration and low cost of internet in India provide a great opportunity to provide quality education where access remains a hindrance for many children. This is particularly the case in rural areas. The COVID-19 pandemic has further proven that the education system need to be on their toes and have to adapt to the changing times. As the UNESCO 2021 State of the Education Report for India highlights, in such testing times, schools and teachers use different forms of teaching methods, including Zoom meetings, Microsoft Teams, and WhatsApp, among others. Recognizing the importance of technology in the education sector and how it can positively impact the learning of students, it is vital to see ICT as a necessary competence among teachers. It is crucial to make it a key area of the professional training curriculum in the coming years.
Okay, and one more time, all these images are 100% produced for this report, and they can be used and reused by any one of you if you wish. We've come to the last recommendation in our report, and I'm going to invite Mr. Anand Singh, Chief Regional Coordinator at Education International for the Asia-Pacific region, to discuss recommendation 10, which is develop teaching governance through consultative processes based on mutual accountability. This is the risky part of this exercise. Is Mr. Singh with us? It's gone so well. We can't have a glitch now. Mr. Singh? Yeah. Is Mr. Singh there? Mr. Singh, you have the floor. Sound? Yeah. Recorded messages are easier, but we wanted to do different things today.
Community highly value consultative decision making at all levels of education and the central role of teachers' organizations in the process. The ILO UNESCO recommendations, both 1996 and 97, emphasize this active involvement of educators and their representative organizations, and the recommendations should guide the setting up of the national and international standards and systems of education. It is important that teachers, principals, and their elected associations, union representatives should always be insiders in this process, in these processes and mechanisms that govern education systems or in the initiatives that are claimed to be for the betterment of education. Education at all levels will always be a state mediated profession, but there should be more meaningful incorporation of the profession in the education decision making. There has to be a collective approach, recognizing that for too long, individuals have been made responsible for systemic issues, increasing their workload and stress while diminishing their enjoyment and satisfaction with their work. So system of accountability must be developed through consultative process involving all teachers and their representative organizations. In order to succeed, teachers and education must be transparent and built on mutual trust between the stakeholders. To conclude, I wish great success to the State of Education report for India 2021, which will definitely feature innovative practices and successful programs that reflect the committed resolve of who are involved in education in India. I personally look forward to receiving this report, and I will be very happy if it tells us that India is on the course of attaining SDG 4, and more teachers and their organizations are participating in the decision-making process. I wish this launch a great success, and thank you for the report that will surely be very useful for all of us in education sector. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Anand. I think it was important also to convey the need to cultivate a greater involvement of teachers and their representatives in policy matters that concerns them. So, we're about to conclude. I hope you're not finding it too long. We're just a little over an hour, it seems, I think, yeah? And we'll symbolically launch the report together. At this stage, I will ask our team to, by all means, distribute the summary of the report, No Teacher, No Class. Please share a copy quickly with everyone. I want to seize the opportunity to say here that this publication was made possible thanks to the generous financial support, in particular from of two institutions. In particular, I want to mention Education International in the Asia-Pacific region, coordinated by Mr. Anand Singh. And I want to recognize also the financial support provided by our colleagues at headquarters under the guidance of Carlos Vargas, whom you heard a little bit earlier. So this is only the summary. Obviously, you can access the full report online. It's about 150 pages, richly illustrated. You will find all the photographs and more there. I want to stress that, of course, we have focused exclusively on teachers today, but it's important also to remember that all of these efforts are for the benefit of students. That is why, to conclude, we asked some students to tell us what, in their view, makes a good teacher.
Clarity of thought and patience.
Encourage me to be creative.
For me, a teacher is compassionate and awe-inspiring, who inspires me to look beyond the textbooks in the real world.
Empathy in a teacher is very important,
because they should be able to relate to the students and their daily life issues.
Passionate and motivated.
I think teachers are just like second parents because they help us to learn a lot.
Nice and kind.
Communication skill and knowledge of the subject they are teaching. Along with empathy, another quality is compassion.
Compassion in a teacher is very important to help the students in whatever problems they face in life, and that's what makes them a teacher.
Okay, that was, I think, a useful reminder to all of us that the students, of course, are on the receiving end of all this teaching. So, again, you have a chance to get the full report online, and I want to ask all of you, photographers should go on the stage, please, for the picture. As usual in India, it's important to have a picture of all of us with not just, me and Padma and Didri and Yasmin holding the report, but all of us. So please, if you can stand up, look at the camera here, and this is our way of releasing the report and applauding all those who have been involved. Are you getting good shots? Okay, thank you. So this we're about to conclude. I really want to thank you for being here today as part of this hybrid event. I think that there's a number of people who will have figures later who, as I said, joined us on Zoom, but also Facebook and YouTube. And thank you, of course, finally, to all the teachers who have been working tirelessly to ensure that learning never stops. We applaud you for the crucial role you are playing to nurture the minds of children and youth in India and beyond. This report is your report to pay tribute to your hard work and dedication. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.